Morning.
Mr. Hersoid.
How you doing?
How's it going? Good?
Oh, good.
Alright. Gonna put the things in the back.
I've been rehearsing my lines all morning.
You what?
I've been rehearsing my lines all morning. Did you sleep well, darling?
Did.
Yeah?
I actually did like 10 hours, I think.
Yeah?
So it was quite a bit.
You must be getting used to jet lag by now, right? Because
Yeah, I mean it's
you've been in Singapore for a week already.
it hasn't
yeah?
been too bad because I was in Singapore and before that I was in Berlin. So
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, you've done it in stages, man, yeah.
Yeah, we've done everything.
Sweet.
Right, I'm ready.
Time travel things where space-time continuum folds over on itself. It's like a donut shape, right? Everywhere is 20 minutes from everywhere else.
The locals get confused with traffic here.
Okay, shh, don't tell anyone. Malays can't drive. They're fucking shit drivers, the worst drivers in the world. It's so funny.
That's
And
true.
the most aggressive drivers, right? If you go on the road and there's someone busting you out of the way and sort of like being super aggressive, not letting you in and bibbing a horn and everything, and then you look in the window and there's a little 60-year-old woman in a hijab and a headscarf just sort of busily driving like a fucking maniac. It's amazing. They're the most vicious drivers. Malaysian women are the most vicious drivers ever. Anyway,
Really?
we can cut that out.
Definitely not gonna do that. So how's living in Malaysia like in general?
In general, it's very good. If you can put up with the awful cuisine and the ugly city, it's actually a great place to live because, well, listen, if you're an artist, right, you're a man of limited means.
Yeah.
Unless you're Damien Hirst or fucking ex-copy, right? So, and as a general rule, it's a great place to live because the cost of living is so low. You kind of forget when you live here just how cheap it is because, you know, you get used to things, you know, and then beer's quite expensive. Obviously, that's the mainstay of any artist.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's like, oh, fucking hell, prices are going up. And then you travel to Europe or to Mexico. Like I was in Houston airport, right?
Yeah.
It's $15 for a beer, right? For a pint of lager. And then they want to charge you $5 service on top of that.
For tips.
Yeah. The guy was really upset with me because every time I went in, put a custom tip of $0.
Yeah.
And Americans don't like it when you do that.
For you to serve yourself the beer or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I had to do it with a QR code, pay for it myself, and then I think all he did was walk over with it. So, yeah, you're not getting $5 for that, friend. Sorry, even if it is your income. But anyway, yeah, so Malaysia is a great place to live because of the cost of living and because of the ease in which you can leave the place. If you speak to anyone who lives here and you say, what do you love about Malaysia? And they say, oh, it's so close to Australia, to Philippines, you can go to Indonesia. You know, it's like, all you're telling me is how great it is to leave the place. Yeah. That's not a great selling
to be
point.
somewhere else.
Yeah, but yeah, no, it's a cool city, man. It's not a cool city. As cities go, if you think of Berlin, if you think of San Francisco, if you think of London, think of anywhere, it's got a million times more offerings than this place. This place is super basic. It's got zero culture and it's really fucking ugly. But it's an easy place to live, right?
Okay.
And there's some nice people here. So yeah, I like it. Well, and if you speak to anyone, an expat who you bump into on the street or whatever, and you say, oh yeah, you've been in Malaysia long? Everyone will say, yeah, 10 years, right? Because everyone comes here on a 2-year contract and you just stay.
Just because it's so cheap?
It's cheap, it's easy, it's convenient, it's got everything you need, right? So it's got great internet access, it's got great transport, it's got, if you want to cook a roast dinner, you can go to the supermarket, buy everything you need, Yorkshire puddings, mustard, all of this sort of stuff, right? If you want to cook an amazing Chinese meal, you can get everything you need here, yeah? There are a few concessions you have to make in terms of there's not a great cultural offering. Yeah, the Malaysians aren't really interested in culture. Again, making sweeping racist generalisations, but nothing more than 5 years old matters to them, right? Novelty is everything. Don't have a massive interest in history or sort of like, there's traditional Malaysian culture, okay, and it's like there's customs and things like that, but it's not, you know, if you go to the National Museum here, honestly, you really must pay a visit. It's the funniest museum you'll ever go to. It's the worst museum in the world, right? When you first come into the museum, the first 6 display cabinets are just rocks, okay? Just like, it's like, this is a rock from the prehistory era of the Orang Asli, right? And then it's like, and here we have a rock from approximately 1100. It's been dated to 1100. Here we've got another rock. It's quite a big one. And it's like, this was found in the Victorian era. And it's like, wow, man, it's literally nothing. They've got nothing to say. But apart from that, it's cool.
We're actually going to go see Arctic as well at some point today.
Oh, cool.
So,
Are you seeing him tonight, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, wicked.
He rented a place. If you want to come with us, like
I might come on. Yeah, check out what's going on. That'd be good. No, I
I
kind of lived here for a bit, but I just use it as a studio now. What are you doing? Sticking stuff. Oh, okay, not a problem. Hey man, come here. So it's kind of like live workspace, yeah? It's got the bits and pieces that we need. Hey, check out the games room.
The game room?
Yeah, this is it. I've got the PlayStation hooked up to that. When my son comes over, we sit and play Call of Duty together.
Beautiful.
And then a little bit of outdoor space out here. Fantastic opportunity to watch the metro and listen to the traffic. This is your... I've got this solo exhibition coming up. So it's this sort of... I've been working in this monochrome series, and this is something I've just started a couple of days ago that I'm working through, kind of like a nostalgic theme to the project. It's sort of uncharacteristically for me, a sort of purity and happiness thing, just literally kind of trawling archive material and old photos and stuff, and just kind of a celebration of honesty and integrity in life and all that, kind of a positive thing, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, well, this is for a solo show. I'm still looking at venues, but I'm getting a body of work together just as a kind of independent thing. Some physical bits and pieces, so kind of in parallel to a lot of the digital stuff that I've been doing. It's nice to get back, get the terps out, get the oil paints flowing, and get back to real art. So yeah, it's been nice. I guess going right back to the beginning, my father was an illustrator and my mother was a picture restorer, right? So this is a pretty fine art background, if you like. And so there was a studio at home, and so art was always around the house. Although I can't really give that as an excuse for why I got to here, because my brother, also growing up in that household, ended up becoming a data manager for motor racing, was into cars, and fucking had not a creative bone in his body. However, yeah, sometimes it sticks, and I think that throughout my life there was always this feeling that, you know, okay, I could draw a bit, and that was my thing, and I enjoyed it, and I was kind of into it, and kind of could see from an early age that, you know, my career ahead probably laid in art or something creative. So it's kind of always been there. A lot of people sort of struggle to work out what they are, where they're going, you know, what their career path might be and all the rest of it. For me, it was kind of like always, it was almost a bit easy. It's like, yeah, I'm going to be an artist. It's like, yeah, of course, you know, this is crazy. And it was very naive and very sort of foolish to think that that was going to be the way that happened. And it's been a very hard slog. But yeah, I think I started a career as a graphic designer, did that for a number of years, and then an opportunity presented itself to kind of just give everything up and take on art full time. And yeah, it was like, okay, do or die. We can do this, or, you know, or just, you know, carry on the daily grind, you know. And I took the leap, and it's sort of like I thought, okay, right, I've taken the leap. I've called myself an artist. That's it. But then you realise that actually, you don't just do that once. You have to keep fucking leaping every time. It's like you think you've made it and think you're there, and then shit happens to you and life changes, and then you have to leap again, and you have to keep fighting to maintain, you know, this position, this idea of being an artist, a full-time creative. Yeah, and so, you know, the various things that happened. I moved overseas in 2001, moved to Brazil. That allowed me to focus on a lot of my kind of like painting, portraits and research and that sort of stuff. And then moved to Thailand and got a job as an artist in residence at a private school. That was an interesting experience. Again, sort of like, you know, you think you're an artist and then you take another leap and say, no, now I'm an artist. Before I was just pissing about making pictures. Now, and then you realise that after a year, it's like, no, there's another shift that needs to happen. And, you know, now you've got to pay the bills. It's like, you know, anyone can paint pictures, but can you sell them? And is anyone writing about you? And do you matter? You know, so yeah, there's lots of stages, and I think that it never stops. When you consider Picasso selling his, you know, first paintings at 65 or whatever, yeah, or, you know, becoming established, or Van Gogh never ever fucking selling a thing. or 100 other artists for whom this story is this common narrative of struggling their whole lives. And I think you've just got to keep fighting and keep pushing and keep sort of saying, no, I don't give up. It would be very easy now to quit, get a job, have a nice car and live a comfortable life. But, I think for most artists, there's a thing inside that's just sort of like, even if they do give in, if they do give up and just take the paycheck, live comfortably and not have the stress of being wondering where your rent check is coming from, sooner or later, real artists just kind of start getting restless, They start to struggle. It's like, no, I need to create. I need, fuck it, this isn't working for me. I'm getting stressed. I'm irritable. What's the matter with you? Why are you so fucking stressed? Oh, I don't know. And then you get back in the studio, you start painting again. And it's like, that's what's wrong. I'm not creating. Yeah. And a lot of people who I know, it's like, that's it. It's inside. It's intrinsic. It's not something you can control. It's not something that is, not even something that you can kind of accept. It's just like, no, I have to do this. If I don't do this, I get cranky. If I don't do this, I feel unsatisfied. I get depressed. I start drinking. This is art, and I think in inside the soul, right? That's the thing. That's what drives you forward. It's a blessing and a curse, right? Okay, so this is a painting that I started just a few days ago, right? It's part of a new collection of artworks that kind of exploring universal themes of kind of the human condition, if you like, but I hate that phrase and I hate people talking about the human condition, but the universal feelings that unite us all, such as grief, happiness, sorrow, faith, belief, and most of the paintings take as their source point found photography, kind of moments captured that take on a new significance when they are taken out of context. So a snapshot, a family portrait from 50, 60 years ago that has been removed from that family, that it's been left somewhere else, picked up in a pile of other junk, finds itself on eBay or in an old antique shop, and then is collected by someone else. And it's the moment itself, it's kind of like what Roland Barthes was talking about with camera lucida, this what does a photograph mean and what is its significance? And when you take it away from its emotional connection, does it lose its meaning? And so this has been an interesting thing for me for a long time, and this idea of found photography and how you then use that and whether you give it a new life when you kind of reinterpret that as a painting. But also those frozen moments and those kind of memories that you look at as a remote observer. You're peeking into someone else's little world and their magical moments, and these little family snapshots kind of like, I think for me, gather a universal significance. Two kids squabbling in a headlock, or in the case of this picture, there's a guy, could be the father, could be an uncle, and there's a pile of kids in a wheelbarrow, right? And the kids are all squealing with laughter and he's kind of carrying them off somewhere, I don't know where. But it's that moment encapsulating that kind of universal feeling of happiness that we all experience, or that we all yearn for, or that we've all lost, And there's a significance to this sort of, these moments, almost mundane moments, that kind of gather a whole new sort of meaning and kind of thing that we can celebrate. And it's kind of new for me, it's uncharacteristic, right? I tend to deal in sex and death, and to do so, this is kind of nice to come back to something that's a bit more positive and a bit more universal, a bit more zen. I'm enjoying it, it's feeling kind of refreshing. So, and again, working physically, it's where I'm much more comfortable, Unscrew the Terps bottle, make the studio stink, get the brushes out, make a mess, right? And get back to, intrinsic painting. I can lose myself for hours, at the easel, I can be here painting, and kind of like, if it's going well, you kind of get carried away. If it's not going well, you're not going to fucking turn away. You turn away, you have a couple of moments away. And then you look back, just as you're cleaning your brushes, right? You look back, hang on a minute, and then you're back in here, right? And that can happen 20 times in a fucking day, right? And every time you go to leave, you just have one last look, literally turning the lights off in the studio. It's like, I'm just leaving now. Fuck, no, the eyebrow's wrong. And that's nice, I like that. I like that sort of organic process, that sort of coming back and reworking. So that's cool. Let me get my pen, man. Okay, is this advice for other artists, man? Shit. Yeah.
From your experience, it doesn't.
Yeah, okay. It's from my experience. I guess. Listen, man. Yeah, you're basically calling me old, right? Yes, you are. You were saying you are old and you've got experience. What do other artists need to do? I'll take that as a compliment. I think that what is interesting is that over the years you make a lot of mistakes, right? You make a lot of mistakes. You think you're right every time, yeah? At every stage. So no, I thought I knew what I was doing, but this is it. This feels real. This is the real me, right? And I think the big learning curve and something that comes with maturity is humility, I guess. It's that sort of understanding that whatever you think and you think you're right, you're pretty much guaranteed to find out within a year or 10 years that you're actually completely fucking wrong and that was the wrong direction or something else to do, or not wrong, but it's like it wasn't going to get you to where you need to be. And I think that I think the energy and the enthusiasm of youth and why young artists are so convinced of their importance and that what they're doing is significant is because they are kind of labouring under the delusion that they matter. I think as you get older, you start to realise that actually you are flawed, you are kind of stupidly thinking that what you say is important and matters. And with maturity and with experience, what you start to realise is that actually the sooner you realise that you're humble, you're stupid, and that what you say you think mattered, but actually it doesn't matter, that's when you start to really produce some interesting work and sort of understand the human condition, human nature, and this notion that we are important and significant and that what we say, this painting is really important for humanity. It's not, okay? It matters to you, that's what matters, right? It matters to you that you get it right. It matters to you that what you think you want to say in this painting, that you reach a point where you're satisfied that it says it, right? That you have achieved your goal. If anyone else thinks it's important, that's a bonus, that's great. But ultimately, the sooner you realise that it doesn't matter, right? That this is just for you, right? That's when you start to really kind of resolve your inner conflict and resolve who you are as a creative and as a person. That was a really, really long and convoluted way of saying something that I don't think anyone else is going to find useful. But I think that to talk to other artists, I think as soon as other artists realise that, sometimes I find the way that possibly earlier career artists or younger artists, they are so convinced of their significance and that what they say matters and that what they're doing is really, really kind of like important. Sometimes it is, but I think inevitably to people, it comes across as kind of not selfish, but a little bit arrogant. It's like, man, you've only been on this planet for 25 or 30 years and you think you've found the fucking answer. And I think this is what I'm driving at. It's like when you get to a later stage, you sort of realise that the answers are so difficult to find and may never even present themselves. It's just about, if you can do what you want to do and feel satisfied at the end of the day or the end of the week, the year, the decade with what you've achieved, then, that's a massive achievement as an artist, yeah? To kind of look at a piece of work and go, yeah, I'm happy with that. I think the stuff that you produce, I would say almost universally, anything that you produce in your 20s, you will look back when you're 50 and go, fucking hell, what sort of twat was I to think that mattered, that what I was saying was so important? How naive and how stupid. But yeah, I think that I'm finding, for myself at least, I'm at a place where, things are starting to come together and I'm now just thinking, okay, it's taken me this long, yeah? And it should take everyone this long, I think, to get to a point where you say, okay, no, this is, it might not be significant, but certainly this is achieving what I'm setting out to do, yeah? And that's something that I think it takes a long time to get to that point, Knowing what it is you want to say, yeah? And I think this is something I've talked with my patron about this an awful lot. He's a guy who I met when I lived in Shanghai, so this is back in 2007. And we've been working together ever since. And he identified quite early on, he's a lover of art, but also he enjoys getting involved in the artistic process, the creative process. And he said, you know, it's about fucking finding your voice, right? Finding your artistic voice, your personal voice. And this is something that it can take an entire lifetime. Some people never find it, but you know, you can sort of identify by looking at an artwork when an artist has found their voice. It's what you're trying to say, what it is you're getting at. It's like, what the fuck are you banging on about, right? Why are you doing this day after day, month after month, week after week? You know, it's significant not just for artists, but for everyone, all of us trying to find our voice, find our kind of like what expression we're trying to make that is significant to the world. And it doesn't matter if you're an accountant, a chemist, physiotherapist, right? You can spend a lot of your time doing that job, trying to fulfill your ambitions, whether they be for career or inner peace or buying a Lamborghini. You know, it's different for each of us. And we spend a long time kind of going through the motions and searching through religion and self-help books and Tony Robbins about becoming a millionaire or the Dalai Lama about becoming penniless. You know, we're all searching for these things, and eventually we do find our voice and we find our purpose, and it's about that sort of inner calm, that sort of getting to a point where you say, no, this is enough, okay? This is kind of where I'm happy. This is my happy place. I go to work, I do something I love, I come home at the end of the day and I play badminton, or I play chess, or I, you know, sit on the internet trawling through Instagram looking for NFTs to buy. It can be anything that gives you that inner peace, right? But this is the finding that voice and that expression that I think all of us try and search for. It's not just artists, but it's so much more in the forefront for artists. And I think that, yeah, that kind of, you see people who have earned millions of dollars, yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars even, trading or doing their job, and then sort of like being conflicted and seeing a shrink and not understanding why they've got all this money and they're still unhappy and unsatisfied. And then eventually they sort of work it out. They work out what the fuck they've been doing all this for, what life is about. And then they sort of reach this inner peace and this calm. And that's finding your voice, finding your expression, finding what it is that kind of gives you the purpose, right? The purpose and the reason for being here. And the understanding of, you know, resolving this inner conflict of, okay, I'm going to work my whole life to try and reach this goal and please my parents and be that person. And then you get there and you realise that it's unsatisfying. It's not one you wanted in the first place. And having the Lamborghini or the fucking beach house in Malibu, it didn't bring you the happiness you're looking for. And actually it was here all along. It was just going for a walk in the park. You know, I think that's that inner voice, that finding that peace and that sort of purpose that we're looking for. It's this big sort of kind of, I don't know, it's getting very spiritual. It's supposed to be about art, right? I did a space with Dog Game, right? He does those spaces, yeah, interviewing different artists. He's been doing it for a long time and he's been doing a great job. And I was asked to go on and talk, and honestly, it was like, yeah. I think the recording's still out there somewhere. I've never listened to it, but I'm just like, fucking hell, man. You just need to shut up sometimes, Hersoid. It's like, no one cares. Shut your fucking mouth.
How is your process like? Can you show me a little bit more about this?
Yeah, so wherever I have a studio, I always like to slap up some stuff. This is inspiration, stuff I respect, stuff I like, and stuff that I need to keep kind of close to me, visually, you know, in a visual proximity to keep reminding myself of where I'm going. If I found a particular groove, like so, this particular piece here, for example, right? This is absolutely doing it for me. That's making me all wet and moist, this painting, because it's everything that I would love to achieve in a painting, right? It's monochrome, it's got this loose brushwork, there's the ambiguity of the faces and where it's breaking down, and the actual context of the image itself. It's like someone's cutting a birthday cake. It's one of these little moments that I've been talking about, right? But it's you know, we don't know who they are or where the images come from or if it's even real. It might be that is amazing for me. But at the same time, you know, I love, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what I achieve. I did a bit of research into this artist. It's someone who paints pictures or creates these images of women who've dropped things and then are in compromising positions to try and pick them up. It's a little bit, what's the guy, this American painter, who does this sort of weird, sort of sexually ambiguous situations with kids and adults and stuff. And it's got an element of that that I really like. It's this sort of a little bit, not saucy, but yeah, there's something there that's sort of like, okay, it's creepy and a bit pervy, but I like that. And then there's, you know, classical things like this. This is going back to your traditional sort of almost post-Renaissance, people studying fruit bowls and, you know, still lives and all of that sort of stuff. But it's a dead bird hanging by the ankles, and there's something nice. Again, sex, death. This is common to all of this stuff. I like to keep a lot of this stuff. You know, I'll change the wall bit by bit, image by image, every 3 or 4 days. Find some new stuff online, bang it up here, and it's kind of going to keep me focused. It's like my mood board for what I'm working on with a particular project. Yeah, bits and pieces. This is actually a piece by a friend of mine. I found it the other day while I was going through some old paperwork. He's an amazing British artist from Sheffield who I work with. Really interesting story. He was diagnosed with brain cancer and given like 3 months to live, and went through all this horrendous surgery and all the rest of it. And after he'd just come out of that experience, I met him and we did a couple of collaboration pieces together. And he's got this banging on about consumerism, capitalism, and, you know, smashing the state and all that sort of stuff that I love. And he did a whole series of these stencil things, kind of like reappropriating. It's like neo-pop stuff, but also he did an amazing Nazi colouring book, which is like all these images of gas chambers and stuff for kids to colour in. All that sort of stuff, kind of like. But so I keep this sort of stuff here to keep me focused, and then I've got, like, I'm a big fan of found photography, so we've got all of this sort of stuff. This is thousands and thousands of pictures that I've collected. I buy them on eBay, kind of like find them in old junk shops, and again, little moments of just kind of crazy shit. You know, a couple of cypress trees, you know, where was that? And old photo booths and stuff. You know, it's great. I like this sort of stuff. Sometimes I take these as actual inspiration for pictures. Sometimes that'll give me the context to look for another image. And then, yeah, just kind of playing around with subject matter and bits and pieces, and then kind of smashing it all together. I keep notebooks with random shit in, ideas, and sort of like shopping lists next to Solana Foundation app, exhibition ideas, Google Doc, NFT oil paintings. What the fuck is NFT oil paintings? And then inevitably my kids pick up the books and start doing their own drawings in them, and it becomes a big mess. This was some stupid idea about, maybe I should mint these. This would make a nice collection and sort of stuff like that. And yeah, just keeping the sort of the juices flowing. And different materials and bits and pieces. Generally, it's like, if you look at my work, it's 99% of it's black and white and 80% of it is oil paint. But, you know, there's some old materials and bits and pieces, interesting stuff like this. So this was a box that I retrieved from my father's studio before he died, and it's got all his old rotring pens. These were beautiful back in the day. It's what was the go-to for graphic designers. There's old nibs and stuff. I've been trying to recycle these and get them working again. And there's nothing better than a Pantone book, man. How beautiful is that? This is it. Anyone, if you don't know what Pantone numbers are, then, you know, you're dead to me. Look, it's even got uncoateds in here at the back. So for the connoisseur of the uncoated, and these are like $700. Yeah, I think I bought one of those on eBay. And this, my most prized possession. Okay, this is a poster that I got in Sao Paulo, and this was, it's called Lambe Printing, and it's how they produce like band posters and gigs and events and stuff like this. And this one was actually produced especially for the Contemporary Art Gallery in Sao Paulo. Choque Cultural, it's an urban art gallery, and they did a collaboration. They took over the main art gallery in Sao Paulo and kind of did a takeover thing for a week, and they produced a poster, and I managed to nick one of the posters, and it's one of my prized possessions. So yeah, it's like inspiration comes from all over the place, really. Why drip? Okay, that's a really good question. And the answer probably goes something along the lines of, I've been slagging off drip so hard and for so long that at some point I had to actually do it and try it, because without doing so, I'm in no position to actually criticize it. And I think it came from, there was in group chats and stuff, a lot of banter and you know, I was talking with my good friend David Lowe, who lives here. He's a photographer in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. And we were talking about the whole process and about all the reasons why drip is the Antichrist and the end of creativity and how it's killing art, right? And he said, look, maybe you should actually get on there and do it. Maybe you need to actually, you keep slagging it off, but you don't even know what it's like to be on there. So there was a Twitter space that I came on and chatted with Vibu, and we talked about a lot of stuff like that. And I thought it's not something that you can tear down. You can't have a go at it unless you don't knock it until you've tried it, basically. And so I said to myself, I'll give it a couple of months to join Drip, and I'd actually work out what to do. I spoke to some other artists, friends of mine who are already on Drip. I spoke to Lowbrow. And she was saying, look, yeah, I get what you're saying, but to be honest, it's a different way of working. It's a different channel, and it's something new. You should try it. Just get on there. Just give it a chance, And so I had to think about this, and I thought about different approaches and how we could do stuff, and started putting a little body of work together and kind of thinking about little capsule collections, because I think that it presents its own unique kind of like situation in which that you are producing work that isn't necessarily going to bring huge financial rewards. So you have to think about what it is you're going to contribute if it's going to be worthwhile. It's like, we can't all sit here working for free, yet by the same token, given the context of the market and how things are at the moment, you could sit here working and giving your best fucking work, putting it on exchange, and it would still be going for free because it's not going anywhere because no one's fucking buying anything. So it's like you've got to kind of adapt and roll with the punches a little bit. And I thought that it would be interesting to, try a few collections and see how things went. And it's been interesting. I'd say it's an interesting experiment. It's like a different audience, I guess. It's an interesting distribution model. It seems to be changing all the time how it works, and so you've got to adapt to what it's doing and what you're doing. But ultimately, it's like, fucking hell, man, if you're going to spend 3 to 6 hours a week keeping your Instagram profile bubbling over, keeping your Twitter stats up, and you're going to keep, it's like it's just another vehicle that another iron in the fire that you've got to keep prodding and poking and keeping things ticking over. And I think that, maybe people need to reassess exactly how they plan to use it. It's like, okay, just treat it like Shopify or Etsy or Facebook or whatever. Yeah, it's another thing for you to explore. It's like, try and subvert it. I had a chat with Nate when he was onboarding, and he said, look, I like where you're coming from. He said, this criticism, you're working, slagging the thing off and then joining and then subverting from the inside. That could be really interesting. Go for it. See what you could do. So I think there's, there are, there's not one set way of doing things. And I think that the more, I see a lot of artists begging to get on Drip and sort of like, I've put in my application, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, guys, come on, just think outside the box a little bit. It's not this fucking gilded cage where everything is going to happen for you. You've got to have a strategy to come here and maybe sort of shake things up a bit, It's an opportunity, it's a channel, a media channel, an opportunity, a platform from which you can do anything, You can just bang on about some crazy political campaign that doesn't even exist. That would be really interesting. And I think that's where the potential lies for the platform is kind of like not just shilling art, selling it for $1, man. It's like, let's do something interesting with this. Let's have some performance arts that actually, brings down the entire institution from the inside. That would be interesting. So, I think that, that's what I'm interested in, and I'm kind of like, hoping to build an audience so I can start doing some crazy shit in that sort of way, What was the other question? This comes up quite a bit actually, and I do have fairly clear views on what I think is missing and what I think would be great. And I guess because I come from the context, the background of spending 20 years more or less in the real life art world, right? And through exploring and struggling with and developing myself within that environment. And I think that, you kind of real world problems and sort of the established art world and what it demands and the rigor and the sincerity and the sort of like the kind of characteristics you need to survive in that world. I think that sometimes coming from that background gives you a sort of irritable old man, grumpy person attitude where you come into the crypto world or the digital art world and you see people kind of getting rich quick or becoming established and achieving success within this new context, and you sort of feel like, it's sort of like, oh, hang on a minute, I've done all the fucking hard yards, I've been here for 20 years doing this shit, and you just swan in here and you have fucking massive collectors and the art that you produce is paper thin in terms of context and really doesn't mean anything to the wider world of art, and yet you're selling pieces for 100 sol and you become grumpy and bitter, right? I think that I'm a victim of this, especially because of my context and where I've come from. However, I feel that what I want to do is kind of turn that into a positive and say, okay, look guys, you're talking about onboarding, you're talking about mainstream culture, you're talking about normies getting into crypto art, we're talking about NFTs becoming established as an art form that is respected and kind of accepted in the wider world, to give credit and sincerity to what we're trying to achieve. It gives kind of certification, if you like. If you want to achieve that, what I'm saying is that I think the fundamental thing that we need is critical rigor. We need proper thinking, proper critique, and sophisticated analysis of what it is people are producing, their intentions, and which art that is being made now within our environment is significant and important and that will stand the test of time, okay? This is very easy to achieve. This is something very straightforward. All it needs is decent writers, decent thinkers, and people with experience, maybe outside of the environment, to come in and lend their expertise to the analysis and the processing and the publication of what people are doing, you know? I think that's not a massive ask. I think it will come naturally anyway. I think that, you know, once the bubble and the fads have gone and the particular artists who were great because of their style or their content, who have faded over time because actually on deeper analysis they weren't really saying anything, and after a couple of sales at Sotheby's and Christie's, yeah, the market has fallen out for them. I think once that happens and things start to settle and we have people analysing and thinking more deeply about digital art, its potential, what it means to exploit the fact that every transaction is recorded on chain, what artists are using the mechanics of blockchain to produce something interesting, who is the artist who is listing every illegal arrest in, you know, Central Africa, or, you know, people being disappeared, putting it on chain, turning this into an artwork where forevermore, because it's loaded on chain either as an ordinal or some sort of inscription, you know, the names of the lost will be recorded forever. This is an interesting art piece that exploits the essence of blockchain. You know, it's not just comic book copies that are distributed, you know, and they happen to be NFTs, even though they exist more fulfillingly as a print or as an original drawing. You know, people who are actually exploiting on-chain art, maybe we'll start to see some deeper understanding and some more acceptance and some, you know, more interesting projects taking place. But I think that that's something that the space needs. It needs deeper understanding, it needs deeper analysis, interrogation, critique, and though I hate to say it, gatekeeping, okay? And it's the one thing that brought me to crypto was the fact that there were no gatekeepers, that it was an open market. You could publish your artwork and it might be listed on Super Rare just because you listed it on this particular chain, and it was an open playing field. Yeah? Actually, the reality is that dream, that decentralized kind of paradise is at odds with quality control and sincerity and some of the things that maybe the creative space art needs in order to survive for posterity. So there's an inherent contradiction with the whole space, which is like, yeah, if you want decentralized, but if you have decentralized and anyone can say anything, then maybe nothing means anything. And this is something that I think I can't resolve yet, and maybe the space needs to resolve, but ultimately, yeah, it will find a way. There'll be a middle ground. There will be some way that we can kind of, you know, resolve these things, and maybe they can coexist happily. Maybe we can have a decentralized environment within which there are accepted and respected, established kind of channels where, you know, serious art can exist that is taken seriously by, you know, the world outside of crypto. I think that there's a peculiar obsession with onboarding, with kind of spreading the reach, with kind of middle curving crypto, and it's for me it's funny because that's not why I came here. I came here because it's edgy. I came here because it's surf culture, it's counterculture, it's decentralized, and these kind of campaigners for normies, average Joe, to be on board. It sort of goes against why I came here, but I understand it. People are looking for, the pond is quite small. In fact, it's evaporating, and you know, the need for liquidity to grow the space and for, you know, projects to develop and grow. I understand that, but it's sort of like, I don't know. I was a skater as a kid, and being a skater was as much about skateboarding as it was about counterculture, about doing something anti-establishment, about being on the outside. And that's kind of what brought me to crypto, and it's kind of funny to see people campaigning to get it legitimized and normalized and sort of brought into the mainstream. I think there's a way for both to exist, but yeah, you know, it's a changing landscape, and we'll see what happens. But I think it's happening already. If you look at what people like Toshi are doing with Scene, and taking crypto artists out into the real world, if you look at what Sleeper was doing in Soho, you know, there are people who are now spreading and kind of doing it with legitimacy and quality, as well as sort of like meme coins that Iggy Azalea produces that are reaching audiences way outside of crypto. It's like, okay, it's growing, it's evolving. And people like me who have our kind of selfish, sort of needy, hang on, I was here first, I was here when it was cool, you know, people like me need to let go, I guess. But I'll constantly be looking for those edgier, sort of outlandish subcultures. You know, if you look at bear marketers, or if you look at some of the Remilio stuff and some of these sort of crazy, eccentric cults that are at both the same time disgusting and amazing. That's where, for me, some of the interesting stuff is lying within this space, and where kind of some of the magic is happening. So I'm quite happy for people to be onboarded. I'll keep trying to worm my way into the darker corners and hanging out with the weirdos, and yeah, talking about sex and death and nostalgia.